Hey everybody, I thought I'd do something a little bit different tonight. It's Friday night and I'm getting ready to do some painting of miniatures because I've been on a painting of terrain spree for a while now, and I thought I'd just do a little bit of a chat on Armada and just showing off my latest, I guess, status of my Rebel fleet. So this is a game that I don't typically show on the channel much because it's not, I consider the channel more of a hobbying channel despite the fact that I like to talk gaming too. This is almost a pure gaming for me because it's all pre-painted, and I do have some stuff I'm going to be painting for it that I'm going to talk about in a moment, because there are some things that don't come painted in the game, but the majority of it is painted. I just acquired and forgive me if I get some of the names wrong, I think I've pretty much got it down right, but this is the Profundity, and it's a large capital sort of ship for the Rebels, and it was the one that was featured in Rogue One. So I've added that to my fleet and was able and used it today. I've had a couple of games of X-Wing in the last couple, or excuse me, Armada in the last couple of weeks. We usually will play 3 or 4 games and then put it down for a while and really pick it up in maybe 6 to 8 months. And it's funny because it feels like I've only been playing this for about 1.5 years, but the reality is I've probably been playing it for over 3 years. You know, I was talking to my friend about it and it surprised me. It's just that we sort of play it like every 6 to 8 months and then we'll play a few games and then put it down. And it really still feels very new. Like, it feels exciting and like a really fun game. I've talked a little bit about Armada. I really love the pace of the game because you have a bit of a dichotomy with your fast little fighters, and then you have, you know, your slow-moving ships, capital ships that are really subject to the inertia of the massive ships in space. Like, depending on the speed you're going, like, you can only take certain arcs, and you really feel that sort of weight of the ships on you. And the ships all have, the big ships have shields around the side, so as a commander of these ships you get to manipulate your shields, and so you can have a bit of some defensive strategy as well as offensive strategy in the game. And yeah, like, so that's the Profundity that I just purchased. I've had the MC-80, or the home one, which I believe is General Akbar's ship, who is one of my favorite generals in the game from Star Wars. I guess this was featured in the show Rebel, but as well as Rogue One. I haven't watched the Rebel cartoon, but I have the Hammerheads, 2 of them, come in a 2-pack. So these are sort of Corvette class ships. Really nice paint job. Like, considering it's pre-painted, it looks very cool. And I have the MC-30, which is a nice sort of close-up deadly ship, if you can get it in close. Really beautiful looking ship that is very much in line with the sort of MC class, which is your Fishman class of ships. So all of these ones here. If you play Rebels at this scale in Armada, you're dealing with lots of fishmen as your commanders, but not all. And then the one we like to call the Whale. I guess it was in a video game or something. I'm not sure that it was actually featured in any of the movies, so a lot of people don't identify with this ship, but it's a great ship for the Rebels. It's frigate class, but for a while there, before I got the home one, this was like my go-to ship in the game. And also this one comes with it, the set, the Nebulon B. I've yet to use this one strategically well in the game. I don't use that one too often, but I think there are some lists where that could actually be useful. And so I guess I didn't show the classic, I don't think I did. Got a couple of these, the Corvettes, CR-90s, you know, you'd be from the opening scene of Star Wars. There's I've got a couple of those, the one that came with it and then the expansion. Now, before I show the fighters, I was just going to mention, so I had a couple of games recently, and last week I ended up using sort of kind of tried and true list. It was, the only thing I added is because I got the hammerheads recently, I added a hammerhead, just a single hammerhead, the whale, and it's funny that I call it a whale. It's just something that my friend and I actually call it. I don't think anybody I've ever seen else call it. The assault frigate, and home one, those three together. And, you know, my home one got destroyed. It was like a glorious defeat for me, glorious victory for my opponent. And it sort of ended up in the wrong spot at the wrong time. And it had a Victory class Star Destroyer coming down on it. And I don't know, we were playing a minefield scenario, so I was having to navigate with the big ship through these minefields in space. And I ended up, I knew I was going to be destroyed. Like, this thing was coming right at me. The pizza slice was just going to basically take it right in half. Frontal assault. And what I ended up doing, I luckily did take two of his ships out before the Victory took him down, the Star Destroyer, so medium class and a small class ship. And, you know, like, my main ship with all my points in it pretty much got obliterated, and this ship just sort of cruised off and into the distance, basically trying to get away, and I lost the game. And I guess I felt, I was actually quite happy that I was able to take those two ships out in the process during his death, like as he was going up in flames. But I decided I wanted to try something different, and as much as I think these guys are cool, I got these guys like a little bit after Christmas. I think I did an unboxing of a whole bunch of stuff for Saga, and I took these guys. They're actually kind of cool. They're a bit more defensive for their point value. They have a bit more hull and are a bit more tankier for a Corvette class than these guys here, like your standard traditional Corvette. And these guys are really wonderful for maneuvering. They're much faster, more maneuverable. And so it's an interesting sort of choice between these two, but it didn't really add a whole lot to my overall strategy, going from one to the other, or some of the other builds that I did. And I wanted to mix things up a bit, and I wanted to try to bring in some more firepower. So today, I still used this guy, and I still used the home one, but I took out some fighter squadrons and replaced this guy with the Profundity. Now, my opponent felt that we had the best game we ever had today. I did lose. But it was interesting because we used an interesting scenario. We used one of the newer scenarios where there was a corona in space coming from one direction. And basically, I was actually facing into the corona. I had the initiative benefit in the scenario, so I always got to go first on each round and kind of had a bit more choice on that initial strike, which is helpful. But as the second player in the corona, he got the benefit of me facing into the light and having some disadvantages firing at him where he had the sun behind him. And so it was an interesting scenario to try to play, because I would lose a little bit of some of my strategic dice in that process because of the corona. And I tried to do a strategy where I drove a wedge with these two into his force and forced him around my guys with Akbar and all my dice. I basically took out one of his small ships right away with this pretty early in. But I set myself up, this guy got destroyed, and this guy barely had a scratch on him at the end of the game. And it really all came down to, because my opponent used the same exact list, it really came down to the very last round where he had taken 2 out of 3 of my ships, obliterated my Corvette and my new Profundity. At that point, I'd only taken one of his small ships, and this guy was fairly new, but the Profundity did actually weaken his Victory class Star Destroyer quite a bit in that process, so it did a pretty good job. But I ended up the time ran out on me, and it was the very last round, and it came down to 1 roll. It would have been possible in some situations for this ship to have taken out his Victory class Star Destroyer in the very end, but my rolls weren't good enough, and he cruised off with just some a little bit of shields down, but in pretty good shape. Like his hull was completely intact, no damage. Just cruised off the home one in the end, and I pretty much lost. Where he lost 2 of his support ships, and so it was interesting. It is a really fun game, and you can also mix up where you have like a lot of fighters if you want. Our last couple of games, we both have been really light on fighters. We've had some times where we've had like just tons of fighters, so it just really depends on the sort of style of game you want to play with your list. So I have some things to think about, because I will be at least playing one more before we put it down, if not another one, possibly. What I was going to say is these are what the fighters look like, and they're not pre-painted. They're the only things that are not pre-painted in the game. And so they're just really, they're not even really like a pure white plastic. They're almost, it's kind of hard to see here, but if you look at these guys next to something that's white, they're like almost have a brownie tinge to them. They're really not that great, like, you know, in that respect. And I think that the TIE fighters are like a gray. TIE fighter is probably a little bit better in the coloration in my mind. But what I was thinking about doing is painting these guys up. Doing a simple, I haven't even really looked at them up close until now as to how I'm going to do them. But I think what I might do is just do a simple white. I'll have to look up and see if I want to put some orange, maybe some dark gray where the weapons are. I was thinking that I would paint the pegs inside. I might just paint black. They're inside the clear. But really, I'm thinking about just doing white. I'll paint the cockpit, a little bit of orange and black, and maybe just a dirty wash, like of Nuln Oil, and touch up some white, just to give them sort of a dirty look, because some of these ships are actually quite nice and they're quite clean looking. And then some of them, like, and then this one too, it's a different color, but it's actually quite crisp and clean looking. And then some of them have a little bit of a dirtier look. This is from the original set. Not quite as dirty as the original X-Wing miniatures that came out, but they have a bit of a dirtier space look. I'm thinking I'm just going to try to match this style a bit, get them more on a grade of white scale than this brownie white, and do a little orange, kind of mimic the X-Wings a bit. I'm also going to do my A-Wings too, because there are a number of ships you can use. Like I have A-Wings and X-Wings are what I tend to use. But I think I'm going to do that. Some of these, it's funny, they do use such a weird mix of colors for these. I guess in some ways it's good, it adds some variety, but like even the home one is brighter than this gray here. But then, like, the profundity is really great. It's beautiful looking, though. But I don't think I'm going to emulate this color with the X-Wings. I think the original X-Wings should be, like, closer to this in the Corvettes that I showed up here. So, yeah. Are any of you guys playing a lot of Armada? I'm just interested. I'm quite enjoying it. I've been playing it for years now, apparently, but if you add it up, the total amount of time I've been playing, it's probably been really just a year to a year and a half, and we just put it down for a while and end up really enjoying it that way. I find I never get burnt out on it. I'm always kind of looking forward to another game. So, yeah. So I just thought I'd show my fleet a little bit. I really do like this game. It's really enjoyable. I do think it's kind of novel as a gamer. For somebody that likes to hobby and build terrain and build like paint miniatures and stuff, and even conversions and whatever, it's actually kind of a novelty if you really like to game as well, to have one or two games that you can just throw a little bit of money towards every once in a while, and it's all painted and it's just fun, and you don't have to, you can like focus your painting on other things that you want to paint. Because to be honest, like, even if these came, like, if these ships came unpainted, I probably would, like, not really be stoked to paint these. Like, I'd rather paint miniatures, like in figures. you know, than these ships. I don't mind doing these little X-Wings just to make them match, but I actually don't really need to paint this stuff. Like, it's not like I'm disappointed. And so, like, all the detail, like, on this, I mean, some people get into that, like, you know, like, that paint, like, models and planes and things like that, but I wouldn't want to actually paint all that detail in for this, at that, like, level. Everything's small, and I wouldn't even know where to paint all that stuff, to be honest. But, yeah. Alright. Hope you guys are having a good Friday evening. I actually am, and talk to you later.